We are live.
Let the people come in. Wake up.
Let them come in the room. Let them wake up.
Suited and booted. That's where I got that from the Nation of Islam. Like suited and booted. Yeah. You know?
How's everybody's morning?
Every morning, you know, had a hard night, but we got a good morning.
Yeah.
Woke up with a blessing. You know what I mean? Get some information, some game.
All right.
I always told them that. We got a big galley coming up on May 18th.
That's right. What are you wearing?
Truthfully, I'm trying to figure out now what I'm gonna wear, but it's gonna be something. It's gonna be something dope.
Come on now. We know that already. We need specifics.
I'm trying to see what what female I'm gonna go with. There's a galley. You know what I'm saying? This is one time a big event.
You gonna bring more than one?
Definitely. I mean, you gotta dress, it's nothing like, well, I see it on the gram, like you have a suit on and we had a gala, you with some dope females. That shit be fly as hell. I really don't go to parties like that, so.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I wanna, I got 3 gowns already. I just have to figure out what weight I'm gonna be by the time I get into them. Like, we fluctuate. So I got the medium size dress, the dress that I am now, and the dress that I wanna be in. So I gotta lose weight for the one but I got 3 dresses for all different sizes.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Okay.
What are you wearing?
I'm having something made.
Of course you're having something made.
I'm going out to look at some material probably today.
And the material. Okay, what does it need to feel like for you?
The material of the event.
What up?
The material. What kind of material do you want?
I haven't even made up my mind, but it's going to be something.
You're going to go around you walking and you're just going to start feeling stuff and decide what's going to be good for you. You know what this feels
I've got something in mind, but it's going to be a surprise.
You gotta remember, man, like, when you see the old pictures of Ak, like when you Google the old pictures, you know what I'm saying? That's when he had like the Jerry curl.
The Jerry curl!
Don't
That curl. I don't know what it was. It was something within that nation. And
what was it?
All I'm going to say is this. Don't hate on the Native Americans.
that's what he had, you know what I'm saying?
You got Indian in your family?
African American and Blackfoot.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But he had the suits on, so he's known for wearing suits.
Oh yeah, we know that. I haven't seen him in anything regular yet. Do you have regular clothes?
I do.
I saw you in your prison garb when you came out.
I kept that.
You did keep it?
Yeah. So
why'd you keep it?
Constant reminder to never go back to jail.
Is it hanging? Is it framed somewhere?
It's framed. No, I'm joking about it. Being framed. But no. I kept the Raymond suit.
What's that?
He knows what the Raymond is.
What's a Raymond suit?
Yeah, man.
It's the little suit that they sell for 25 cents.
What is it though? What does it look like?
It's a suit. It's
that's a soup. What's it look like to the ones that work?
A soup.
Oh, what about the soup now?
I kept that and the Mac pack.
Oh.
Because that's what I lived on for 37 years.
Oh. Wow.
So this was a reminder.
What was your first meal?
Probably some shrimp, and it was fried, and I couldn't eat it because I don't eat fried food.
Oh.
So all I could taste was the oil.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what was your first meal that you were like, okay, I'm home, I am home, I am home?
Oh, he said that once he went through that door.
When you come home, every day is a celebration.
Amen.
And every meal is a feast.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that the one that I could say that was like home cooking was at the Juke joint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's that?
That's on, it's in between Bloomfield and Newark.
Okay.
But it's a soul food restaurant, and they had really, really good food.
Okay, well, shout out to the Juke joint.
Shout out to the Juke joint.
I'm just, when you hear stories about Ak, I was just so happy to see him walk out of there, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Freedom is everything, you know what I'm saying? Like, when you lead his life, you know what I'm saying, a crime, and like I told people all the time, you never really believe that you're going to get 25 or 30 years before you get to prison. You don't believe that. Not one person I know I ever met in my life to say, he was going to get 30 years, this was what he was looking for, this was his desire. And when I was a kid, and I read the newspaper, I got life, you know what I'm saying, for his lifestyle. I never thought that 1 minute that I would be doing any time in jail in my life. You know what I'm saying? And so to see him walk out of prison, you know, with his armor and his honor. You know, but sometimes we just come from prison, they be like off a little bit. I mean, we all off a little bit.
How y'all know y'all ain't off? That's what I want to know. How do you know you're not
And
off?
some of us are burnt out than others.
But you know what happens? You don't know that you are, I don't even want to say missing a step, but you don't know that you are not where you should be when you're in jail because you don't suffer by comparison.
Okay.
Because if everybody else is crazy and you crazy, you don't stand out.
Right.
You know, so, you know, you don't leave that situation unscathed
Yeah.
because it's unnatural.
What do you think, habit-wise, and it's still early in the game, you haven't been home a whole year yet, and Shawn, you probably be able to tell me as well.
5 months.
5 months what? Oh, that you've been home.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think that you're not used to the most? Do you wake up sometimes thinking that you're still in your cell? Sometimes, like, do you wake up like, oh, shoot?
No, you know, my reintegration back into the society, into the community, in some regards was seamless. Because even though I was in the jail wasn't in me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't quote scripture, but Christ said I'm in the world, but not of the world.
Amen.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so in jail, you know, I lived to a large degree in the outside world, and I lived vicariously through my children.
Okay.
You know, so that's why a lot of people don't realize how important pictures are to people in jail.
Mm-hmm.
But when we get pictures, we pass it, they might go all over the institution.
Uh-oh.
Because everybody wants to see the outside world, what it looks like, what people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So people cherish pictures are very important in jail. If you have anybody in your family that's doing time, remember to send them pictures because it's the only time that they're outside the prison.
Oh, wow.
You know,
A
so
picture could take you a long way.
yeah. So in my case, my son was sending me Jeff was sending me 50, 100 pictures a month. You know.
Oh, nice.
I was getting pictures sometimes from you, from Diva magazine, when you showed me pictures of the parties.
Mm-hmm.
Those pictures went all over the prison, you know.
Great.
My son, yes. And you were a pinup.
I know I was.
She's on stuff in someone's locker. You know what I'm saying? Definitely on someone's locker. And also, listen, audience, everyone ask any questions, feel free. You know, he's a mentor to me. He's a mentor to other people, and he's a mentor to the world. That those that love him, you know what I'm saying. Some people he give game to, and he don't know he give it to him. You know what I'm saying. But until I get around him, the conversations be so deep because he's smooth.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying. And I told him that when I was young, I would see older people, and you know, I would be like, yo, I want to be like this person. I just want to be a smooth, older guy. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't know how to go through so much shit
To get there.
Feel me? And you know, he went through a lot of trials and tribulations. How can I say this book? Before the 35 years you've done.
36 and a half.
36 and a half. I want to take the name from you. I apologize.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the making of you. You know, when do you think you first committed a crime that you think you knew about it, or you think you didn't know about it?
Well,
When did you start that?
In the world that I was born in the sort of the game that I was born to, we didn't consider what we was doing every day as a crime. My family sold dope from the time that I was born in the world, almost until the time that I left that home. Every day at my house, somebody come to cop. And because I was a little boy and the police wouldn't search me when they kicked down the door, they kept the stash in my pajamas, you know. So all night and all day, people was coming to cop and they'd call me up. Wake up, give me 2 bags. Or give me 3 bags. And I'm like, I'm asleep. And half an hour later, somebody else was back to the cop. So that was the only world that I knew, so it wasn't criminal. I was certain that little boys throughout the country was doing the identical same thing that I was doing.
Okay.
It's just part of life.
That was the prism that I saw life through.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody came was a dope fiend and they couldn't get a hit and they was intravenous drug user, they would call me because they said I was lucky. And if I found a vein for them, I got a quarter.
Oh.
That was my first hustle. So, I mean, it seems
Wow.
unfortunate. It was the world that I knew. Like I said, again, I thought kids all over the world was doing the same thing. And you see life through the prism of your experience.
Of course.
And even as you get older, that becomes your frame of reference. So I never really thought of any of that as a crime. When I was getting a little older, when it was time to get school clothes, my mother was asking me, you all right? Because she figured I was hustling up enough money to get school clothes regardless of what the hustle was.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't have a moral reversion or revulsion to the life that you lived because that was the only life that you knew.
When did you first realize that it wasn't everyone's lifestyle?
You know, in the black communities back then, before we were allowed to like integrate into white communities, you did have some middle class blacks that lived in those same communities. And you had a lot of whites that lived in. So I had a friend of mine who took piano lessons, you know. So he wasn't really living the same world that I was living in, but he was an anomaly, you know. I wanted to learn how to play the piano, still want to learn how to play. So I knew that there was another world. It just wasn't in my world, you know. So I guess, you know, realizing that there was another world and that the other world in some regards was better, it was an necklace for me to push to try and get money to live out a world outside the world that I was born into.
Okay.
You know, that's when you start to hustle.
When you first time you went to jail, what age you think?
I got locked up as a teenager, as a youngster, about 17 years old, and I was in jail for like 6 months. Nothing really that serious. And I decided I don't want to come back here, you know.
Yeah.
I was in Annandale. And
Wow.
Yeah, way back then.
Yeah.
And I came out before I turned 18. And I didn't like the experience. I mean, I was cool, you know, I'm from Newark, everybody was from Newark, we was all cool. I always boxed all my life, so I was good. But I guess that was the first time that I had that experience, and I didn't go back to jail until I was damn near 40. You know?
Yeah.
For the next 30-some years.
You had a good run.
Well, you know what? It's relative. You know, you look back and you say that you have a good run, but you know, you have to juxtapose, does the risk outweigh the rewards? So if you got a life sentence, I don't care how long you ran back then, you know, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
So it was a 23-year run with all of the ups, but while I was in jail, I had like 5 sons die. You know, and I didn't attend a funeral. Of course, my mother died. And just my son was graduated from high school, even from grammar school, I wasn't there. He graduated from high school, I wasn't there. He went to Seton Hall and graduated from college, I wasn't there, you know. So these
It affects you later on.
yeah, these events in your life, but it even affects you at the moment because you know, you want to be present in your children's life. And you know, I was just a voice on the phone. You know, and that's how they knew me. Like my grandchildren, I was just my grandchildren came into the world, I was just a voice on the phone, and I wanted so much more, and they wanted so much more, and they deserved so much more. So if you make a few $1 million or whatever it is, and you juxtapose it about what it took from you in order to get that, then you know that the risk didn't outweigh the reward.
Yeah.
I kind of understand that. You know, I went there myself. About being 20 years, I never was really in my son's life. You know what I'm saying? But you can see some of the effects when you're not in your kid's life later on. You don't pay no attention when you're younger, but you can see the effects when he talk, when he moved. You know what I'm saying, and you try to balance it out with them. And I remember when I was a kid, I was talking to Cigar Robbie. I always remind him because I just love talking to him. And he told me he just wanted to be a grandfather. And I'm like, what? I said, so all the crime you committed, everything you done, he said, I just wanted to be a grandfather, Shawn. Like, at this point, when you get so much money, you don't want to die without being something to the people being something to the people that love you. And I understand that.
Okay. Speak to the importance, I'm getting questions by the way. Speak to the importance of parenting from prison. Like, how important is that? I mean, even though you're just a voice on the phone, what are some of the things that you felt the need to convey while you were having those conversations?
I was fortunate in that I had the women that were in my life managed to keep my children in my life. So I did parent from in prison. And, you know, if you see yourself as more than just a sperm donor, then you want to be in the children's life. So when my daughter, Akbar, who you know, when she was like 3 or 4 years old, When I went away, she was 4. My other daughter, she was 6 months old. My other daughter hadn't even been born, so I had a lot of children. But I managed primarily, and this is an understatement.
I know. He also,
Roll call.
sidebar.
Sidebar.
He actually owned a abortion clinic. Sidebar.
I didn't use it.
Obviously.
But it's important to stay in your children's life because they'll reach a point where, especially with girls, I mean, my son's here, but even more so with girls, because if a girl doesn't have a father, you know, half of the people that she's going to meet in her life are going to be males, you know. And if she can't get a real sense of the thinking of a man or how men react to stuff, but from the mother, she can tell them intellectually or cerebrally on what it's like to be a man or how to interact with men, but she can't tell him from a personal experience of how a man views women in certain lights. Vis-a-vis is the same way if you have a son and he's raised just by his mother, you know. It's the same thing. The mother can give him some sense of some things as how a man should carry it, but he has to really interact with a man, and he has to have male role models in his life. I had male role models in my life, but they was dope dealers.
Okay.
They was pimps, you know. I was fortunate enough to have a guy that was a role model of a sort who was a dope fiend, but he was he had a degree in literature, you know. And at that time, a lot of the drug addicts were your poets, your jazz musicians, your singers, your actors, and they came to my house to cop. And I had, they used to come back to me and talk with me about Poe and Shakespeare and Kipling. And I had a near photographic memory when I was a kid. So when they told me about this, when they told me about it, when they told me about the Raven, when they told me about Othello, I would read about it. They would bring me books. And I knew how to read at a very young age. So I read a lot as a child. I never asked for guns or trains. I asked for chemistry sets, telescopes, and microscopes. My family thought I was crazy.
But you wanted to discover.
I wanted to discover. I knew that there had to be another world aside from the one that I was living in. I found that other world in books.
Okay.
You know.
When did you find it outside of books?
Because I started hustling at a young age, and I stopped eating at just the soul food restaurants, and I started going to steakhouses.
Okay.
You know, and I started taking and steaks were very, very cheap back then. Steakhouse, they had like $1.99 steakhouse. But I would go in there, and after a while, I said, "Don't order it well done." And somebody told me order it medium well. Told me the correct way to cut it. So when I took my little brother and my cousin there, both they were 2 years younger than me. Then I was, you know, a seasoned
Steak cutter.
Yeah, restaurateur, you know. And so, you know, it just made you want more, want better, and you know, to upgrade, you know, your taste and the kind of places that you want to be at and go to.
What are your philosophies? Well, I read in your book before about carrying pistols. Like, you know, back in the day, do you carry guns? What's your philosophy on carrying guns?
Well, my thing is, I don't want to go anywhere where I have to feel, the only way I can feel comfortable is if I got a gun.
But isn't that all y'all's paranoid thing? Like, what a wise man once told me, you have to be paranoid. Only the paranoid survive.
I told you, only the paranoid survive.
Right.
And that's true, but I mean, the whole point when you're in the game, and this is not to glamorize it, it's just talking about the nature of the beast, is as soon as possible to remove yourself from that level of constant danger and that level of possibly getting busted. So if you got work, you're trying to put it in somebody's hands with the quickness. Did somebody give it to you, you're trying to give it right to somebody else because you don't want to be on the front line, you know. So it's similar when it comes to like having to carry a gun. I don't want to go to no club where I have to carry a gun in order to feel comfortable. I'm not going to any club where I have to feel comfortable in order to have a gun with me. You know, the whole point of hustling is to escape that environment, not to get money and then embrace that. You know,
I think they confuse that.
yeah,
Say that again. Say that again.
The whole point of getting money is to escape that environment. To escape the environment of you in the club and they come by spraying. To escape the environment that you in the club and somebody drop an ounce by your feet and the police say it's a joint possession because, you know, you was in the car with. So, I mean, if you're not escaping that, then what is the whole point? Because it's about quality of life.
Right.
It's about moving from the outhouse to the penthouse, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree on that.
Yeah.
I agree
Quick
on
question. I'm thinking about all these people now. You interviewed, I forgot who you interviewed. You interviewed someone recently, and everybody's story, Freeway Rick. And everybody's story is getting told differently, but they're capturing some of it. And then they twist it a little bit. I know that, let's say Godfather Harlem, for instance, about Bumpy Johnson. Not everything in there is real. It's a good show nonetheless. Do you think about doing your show or a movie about yourself before you pass away so you can tell your own story?
I don't know if I embrace the term passed away. I don't want to look at my mortality. Everybody knows from the time you're born, you begin to die.
Amen.
You know,
you're on the way to death.
Everybody, but you don't want to. You know, you don't want to make that the topic of discussion. So
Right.
you don't
Okay.
want to talk about me passing away.
Okay.
I just came home.
And you just turned 77. Amen to that. Happy belated.
Happy 15 years. Let's have a conversation in 15 years.
Okay.
But as far as, you know, telling my story is two parts, you know. It was who I was and who I've evolved to, you know. So, I mean, I can't tell my story of my evolution without also telling the story of my past,
Right.
you know, and what I did, and my degree of being penitent about my past life, because I am, you know, I made some harsh decisions, I lived a harsh life, and when I was in that world, I probably played a little rough, you know. So, yeah, that story can be told, but I would never want that to be the focus. I've talked with, you know, some producers and some people in Hollywood, and we're in the discussion even right now as we speak. But I want the story to be more focused on, you know, what I want to do, you know, who I feel as though I've become. I want it to be focused on my evolution than on my past, less on my infamy, you know, than on where I am presently. You know, so we've been talking to some people in that regard. We've got some. My son who lives in California is a screenwriter. He's been talking with the people at Stars, you know, for like the last couple of months.
Let me ask you a question. When they say like, you know, organized crime or black family, you were for the people. You know what I'm saying? All you know, the Muslim brothers or. Where do you think that started from? The Nation of Islam, you think like as a whole, for people you love? You know what I'm saying? Because they call it organized crime, but you was probably calling it something else. You was looking out for people.
Well,
What do you think that deprived that leadership that you want to do for other people or put other people in a position to make money? What do you think that deprives from you not having it one time or just your nature?
Well, you know, if you're going to be in it, they say if you live in the jungle, it's better to be a lion than a lamb, you know. So if I'm going to be in the game, they say in for a penny, you in for a pound. So I've seen guys that were selling ounces and end up with life, you know. And I've seen guys that were selling keys that ended up with 30 years, you know. And sometimes it's the luck of the draw. But there was two young guys when I was in Lewisburg. They were 23 and 26. They were from Harlem. And they were hustling out of Virginia. And they were going to New York and they were buying 3 or 4 ounces and they was cracking it up and coming back to Virginia and selling it. And they never really bought more than probably 7 or 8 ounces. When they went to trial, they got life plus 25 years.
Wow.
You know? They finally went home, but when they went home, both of them was close to 60 and they came in at 23 and 26. Ditto the Torres brothers, who was like 25 and 28. When they finally went in, they was given life plus 175 years, you know.
Quick question. When you were incarcerated and you had, was it 2 life sentences?
No, I had life plus 50.
Life plus 50. When you were there and they said that they gave you that length and you knew that life in federal prison meant you're never going home.
Life in the world.
Right. Once you knew what that meant, what did you feel? And did you always know? Because I remember a conversation I had with you very early on, and I said something about your life sentence, and you said to me, "Oh no, I'm gonna be home." So did you always feel like you were gonna come home? Was it in your gut? Was it in your just thinking positively, or you just really had a core belief that there's no way I'm sitting in this place that long?
Well, it was two things. One, I knew that the government actually had a very weak case against me. You know, they had no drugs to show the jury. They had no wiretaps. That they actually had wiretaps, but the wiretaps were what they call exculpatory. In other words, the wiretaps would have supported my position that I wasn't in the drugs. And so they didn't have any. They didn't have any wiretaps. They didn't have any drugs. They didn't have not one person that said that I sold them any drugs. What they did have was the plugs. And the plugs said that I bought drugs, large amounts, 200 keys or whatever from them, 75 keys, whatever the occasion was, you know. But I knew that all of this, people think that that's hearsay testimony. They confuse the fact that if a person says you bought something from them or sold something to them and you said you didn't, people think that's hearsay. That's not hearsay. That's direct evidence.
Wow.
Hearsay is if you bought something from me.
And he told
you.
Right. And then I said, well, Shawn told me he bought something from Akbar.
Then that's hearsay.
Yeah.
But it has to be once, it has to be an incident one removed, or at least twice removed, in order for it to be considered hearsay. Other than that, it's called direct evidence. It may be circumstantial, but circumstantial evidence is as probative as direct evidence. Like the judge used an analysis, he says if you are in your house and it starts to rain and you go out in the morning and somebody says it rains last night, when you didn't see the rain come down. So you don't have any direct evidence, but you have strong circumstantial evidence because all of the sidewalks are wet, you know? So that's why they say when they talk about reasonable doubt, it's what a reasonable person would conclude based upon that evidence. That's why they want to find you guilty beyond reasonable doubt.
And because you felt your case wasn't strong, you thought you were going to get out on appeal? What did you think?
I thought that eventually I would get out because I learned law while I was in there. And based upon the law, I should have been out maybe like 20 years ago because I showed evidence of prosecutorial misconduct, the government withholding evidence, no use of perjured testimony, you know.
What's that?
That's when a person comes on, takes the stand, and they perjure themselves.
Okay.
They lie on the stand. Maybe they testify differently in another trial.
Oh, okay.
You know, and the government knows that the testimony is false, but they use it anyhow.
Got it.
So that's called no use of perjured testimony. Well, there was a lot of perjury in my case. There was a lot of withholding of evidence that would have supported my position. And there was, in some cases, an easy destruction of evidence that would have supported me. So I knew that at some point, that if Martin Luther King said the arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice.
Yeah.
You know, I knew that at some point, if justice was done, and I wasn't saying that I was totally innocent.
Right.
I was saying that I was innocent of some of the offenses that they charged me with. You know.
What did they offer you then?
Well, they offered me 10 years.
They offered you 10 years?
But it was with cooperation.
Oh.
You know,
Yeah.
so that was, for me, that was tantamount to no offer at all.
Okay.
So that wasn't an offer.
They never gave you like a straight offer, like it takes us 20.
No. No, because I probably would have took it. If they, I mean, everything is relative. You know, when all of it's in front of you, when you say 25 years and you still in the street or you just been in jail a month and you say 25 years. Like
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, you know, after you get in and you see people that got, like guys in Lewisburg, got 6 life sentences.
They were destroying them, bro.
Yeah, life was 175, life was 50, you know. And then you realize 25 years might have been all right, you know? Yes, because because people was doing that. I mean, people doing 20, 25 years, you know, almost on their heads.
You
know?
did 25, right, Shawn?
Yeah, I done 20,
But the sentence was 25?
23.
Okay.
Broke my heart to sign that paper.
But in retrospect, if he hadn't signed it, he would still be bidding now.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Vincent, you know, Vincent is one of my co-defendants. He like a little, it come to law, he like a little brighter than us on that area right there. Like you got co-defendants, dudes running the streets, they're gonna be bright in the same area. So when he came to tell me, yeah, just take the 20 and run. I'm like, nigga, you out of your fucking mind. I said, you taking 20? He said, I'm going to trial. But you can't win. You want every piece of paper in there. There's no way you can win. Take the 20 or thank me later.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking like this. My lawyer like, you know, come home 38 ain't bad. I'm 38.
Yeah, you like, you old as hell.
19 years old until I come home 38 ain't bad. Look at me. I still got a life.
Right.
Fuck you talking about, man. He said, put that gold pen just sign on the paper. So it took me a while to really, you know, then I went to my mother, asked her, like, what should I do? Mm-hmm. And she was like, you know, I made you, but I can't make you make a decision. This is your life.
It's part of the reason to go to trial, obviously to get your innocence going, right? But you can then get an appeal. You can't, right? Since you signed and agreed to go for 23 years, you can never appeal anything.
Well, it's a difference because, say, I give you an example. When I went and got sentenced, the judge gave me my time. For my county jail, a year, another year, I started in jail. He put it on my back, for me, which I never knew he could do. Okay. So 1 year later, I'm with Don Quan, a dude out of Brooklyn. I'm telling him my story. He's like, he said, so when he sentenced me, he just took I got 24. He took the year off. He said he could never do that. So what you mean? He could never do that. He has to give you a front check on your front, which I'm doing 20. I never knew that. Mm-hmm. He said, so I'll go down to the, go down to the R&D, boom, and tell me the story right here. And then I found some people that took the year off. Mm-hmm. But, you still got a chance or small stuff like that. Mm-hmm.
What happens is that you waive your right to appeal.
Okay.
This is how the judge protects himself, and he also protects his sentence, his judgment and order. So you waive that right so that they don't have to worry about you coming back later on and challenging the sentence that you agreed to.
Right.
So they ask you to waive that right. They tell you that in order to sign this agreement, you have to waive your right to appeal. But that doesn't mean you can't appeal your conviction more often than not, unless it was coerced. Mm-hmm. Your agreement was coerced. But you can appeal part of your sentence later on down the road, depending on the circumstances. Mm-hmm. So they came up with a lot of things that would allow you to challenge when they changed the new sentencing guidelines. And sometimes they have what they call -2 points, where if you had less than a certain amount of points, then you could go back in the court. They had the second chance. They had a lot of things that opened up the door to appeal your sentence, but rarely anything that opened up the door to appeal your conviction.
Mm-hmm. But it is true, man. They said when you got locked up, right? And I told people, he probably, they think I was going to keep him. Mm-hmm. They said when you got locked up, man, you said, man, you'll be out for the Tyson fight.
No.
And you never went to the Tyson fight again.
I never made
this
that.
What they said,
yeah,
man.
I know.
You heard it before?
Yeah, they put that in the newspaper.
See?
Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to dirty your image in the minds of the public. Because this is the same public that's going to try you, or be a trier of facts when you go. That's going to be the jury. So they want to start off early on by giving the perception of you as like an arrogant dope dealer.
Okay, so you didn't say that.
Never said it. When I was on the plane, they had already taken my jury. When I was on the plane, they said, "Hey, so Akbar, you want to put your jury back on?" So I said, "Yeah, you put it on." So when I got off the plane, they took pictures of me walking with my jury, and they said he was wearing one kind of jewelry when he walked in, but he was wearing another kind of jewelry when he walked out. all of this was staged. I got on my jewelry, so now that's the caption. Akbar prayed, drug overlord, walked in with diamonds and walked in out of handcuffs.
Yeah, remember, man. I try to visualize like back then. When you hear old timers get knocked off, like Nicky Bonds, you hear Guy Fisher out of New Jersey, you would hear him. Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. But I believe all these old timers knew of each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did.
Oh, so they were saying like it was like respect. They knew of each other, and and he was one coming out of New Jersey like that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And so when you sitting there, you were like, damn, There's which one you asked me about? Other than the movie, you said something about the movie.
You talking about Godfather Home?
Yeah.
Godfather Hartwell.
Like, you know what I'm saying? He's not that old. We're not that old.
I wasn't even born almost when he was out there.
What you talking about? What's the name?
Bumpy Johnson.
Bumpy Johnson. Around with Bumpy was right. I mean, because Bumpy went to sing like he went to real prison, man.
Yeah, Bumpy was. He probably was a guard. I remember him. You know, but when I remember him, I was like a kid. You know?
Oh, I thought you were around the same time.
No, they was talking about Bumpy when I was a little boy. I met some of the guys from his crews when I was in my teens. I met guys that used to be with him, Mookie and Good Doctor and all of them guys. But actually, knowing Bumpy, I think he died by Wells. What was the name? You remember the restaurant Wells on 137th Street?
Was it a soul food place or something?
It was no, they sold chicken and waffles.
Sounds soul foodie.
Yeah, on 137th and 7th.
That's where Bumpy Johnson died?
I think that he died either there or I think that he might have been in a car chase with the police, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He died on a long head. When I was finally getting in the mix, he had been dead for a while. Like when I was like 18, he had been dead.
Okay.
So I was meeting guys that used to be with him back then. But
Okay.
He was that guy.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
When's the first time you knew you were that guy? I mean, I know you woke up in the morning, looked in the mirror, and was like, I'm that guy. But when was it verified by someone like this? Was there a moment that you were like, they pretty much think I'm that guy?
I'm going to tell you when that was verified, because I never thought of myself like that. I don't see myself in those terms. I can't stop what other people see. The only times I knew that it must have been something unusual was at the Penn Station.
Okay. What do you mean, when you came home?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something.
Yes, because...
Are you serious?
No, because... he's been in jail with me. He knows that that's not me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not condescending. I'm not like, I'm a boss nigga. I'm not on none of that. You know? And I'm uncomfortable with guys that carry it like that.
Well, they're not supposed to.
Well, because, even if there's a right, even if they deservedly can be called that, you should never project that to other people, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So I was never like that, so I've never embraced that, like, oh, that's big Akbar prayer.
Okay, but you knew when you came home and got off that train.
I knew that somebody, that's obviously what they thought, because it's like 700 people there when I came home.
I must be that man.
Dude told me a story about him one time, and he was like, yo, he said he went somewhere, he had a beef with somebody. So he goes to Akbar. Had a situation with somebody, man. You know.
This is in prison or on the street?
Back in the day, street.
Okay.
The streets, I got a situation with someone. And he was like, somewhere around, come with me, I take care of it. He was like, should I bring my gun? So you don't need a gun with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm love. Like, this is love over here. And the dude was like saying like, when the dudes respect you so much, for me, they respect your religion, they respect your mind, they respect the way you move. You ain't gotta come with a gun back then. It was respect for older people, or was respect for amongst men. And that's what the dude was explaining to me about Ak. He wasn't trying to glorify like, he's a big shot. He said just that they call him smooth because he know how to smooth a situation out. You know what I'm saying? So he was like he goes with peace over war.
Got it.
He goes with, let's talk it out over let's gun it out. And that's what dudes were trying to explain to me, like, and I said that's the best way to be.
Conflict resolution, you're good at that, huh?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Well, also in turn.
Yeah. You learn to try. Pulling the trigger is easy. Realistically, it is. It's very easy. And once you do it once or twice, you feel immune from the consequences and the whatever, not even ethical, but whatever little tremblings that you had before you did it. After you did it once or twice, you get sort of comfortable there. You know? Newark was far more violent then than it is now. It's just far more reported now than it was then.
Okay.
But now in the newspaper they say if it bleeds, it leads. So if it's a bloody story, that's going to be the lead story.
Okay.
It wasn't quite like that, and the violence is more indiscriminate now than it was then. Because you very rarely heard about a drive-by. People didn't do drive-bys then. if you
I
have,
thought Callie started the drive-bys.
but that's the truth though. Even if you say it laughingly, that's really where it came from.
Yeah.
Guys wasn't doing drive-by. If they had a beat, they was walking their guy down.
Mm-hmm.
And when he looked at, he was changing a tire that somebody had flat, and he turned around and somebody standing over top of him. You know.
Was there a lot of fighting versus guns in your day?
When I was very young, but the gun came when at the age that I became an adult. That was when the guns really came into play. You
Okay.
know?
Prior to that, you just
Yeah,
threw
you
your
know, you
fists
have
up.
reputations based upon your fisting abilities, your pugilistic abilities.
Yes,
You know?
yes.
And guys had reputations that just their reputation could quill with violence, could quill with beef. You know, because anybody trying to put get hands put on them by that person.
Okay.
You know?
If you can go back, right, and you talk about that, probably whether that, like, since a lot of people you grew up with that, you know, that passed away, or what would you tell them, like, yo, look, it wasn't worth it. I mean, you grew up with some comrades that passed away, and it hurts when you're a comrade in jail. What would you tell them, like, they're saying it really wasn't worth it? You know what I'm saying, that the things we were doing, like if you could change some part of the game.
Some people say that they have no regrets. You know, I'm not a person that says that. You know, I do have some regrets. You know, I don't glamorize the life that I live, but the life that I lived allowed me to arrive at this point doing the work that I'm doing now. If I had never went to jail, I would never be as committed as I am to making a difference. You know, not just making a statement, but really trying to make a difference.
So you had to have that time down, that
I
downtime.
didn't need as much.
You learned within 10 years you would have been
For
good.
10 years I was straight. You know, I said, Uncle, listen, you know, we good, you know. But 10 years apparently wasn't enough for them, so they gave me the next 27 after that. But even in those instances, even as long as it's been a learning experience, you know. And if it taught me nothing else, which I was never bad with this, I became more empathetic, you know. Yeah, I think that that's one thing. And as you get older, you find out that everything is in black and white.
Right.
You look at nuances. Things are nuanced, you know. Everything is like, man, well, if he didn't do this one get ready to do it. You know, if he didn't do this, you owe that. You know, and I just brought that in for $3,500. Maybe that kept me from losing with him down the road $35,000. The $3,500 don't become a line in the sand. When you are young and you know, impulsive, everything is a line in the sand. You know.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what the difference is in your day versus today? The street, what's going on in the streets today versus your day?
The difference then, in some regards, is that you came up through a pecking order back then. You didn't start, you know, now guys can fall, well, for a while, they could fall off the porch, and 3 months later, they're the man, because somebody done gave them a big package, you know, so you started, you know, you started off, you was a runner, you worked for a guy, maybe you became a lieutenant for a while, maybe you was even an enforcer, a figure dude, you know, and by the time you arrived at the point where, like, you was that dude, you was seasoned, you know. Now, you have a guy that's in the gang, he's 15 years old, but he's a shot caller, but he's 15. He might have to run with a guy that's 20 years old, 28 years old with a college degree. But Shorty got 4 bodies or 3 bodies, you know. So he's calling the shots. So it was those kind of endeavors. You still have your old heads then, but the old heads started becoming, the OGs started becoming younger and younger. And so they didn't have the breadth of life experience that guide people past some of the stuff that they should have learned to navigate. But they didn't come up under anybody. Guys are being raised more on time by rapping about lives that they never lived. Driving down the highway, getting money to fly away and all of that. And you never sold a gram, you know? So the kid is listening and he's feeding into that. And then some of the idiots in jail, every picture that they take, they got on the casals and the gold chain, and they like this here. And guys say, oh man, them niggas is balling up in there, you know? But they had a book called Gangsters Cry at Night, you know? Because I had a guy that was my cellie, and he was like a trader dude. And I'm laying in the bed, and I hear him, you know? And I thought he had an allergy. I'm serious. I thought he had an allergy.
"Are you okay, man? You need some tissue?" In the morning, I said, he said, "Man, I know you heard me." I said, "Yeah, man, you got it." And he said, "No, I was crying." I said, "Crying about what?" He said, "Because I had only," he said, "I went and did 7, 8 years." He said, "I'm 26, so I went to jail when I was 18, and I only been home 6 months. And now they gave me 27 years, man." He said, "I had no life."
Yeah.
And leave there unscathed. You know, that's why under the Obama administration they had stopped it, and why they tried to stop it in New York for a while, because it
The
even
solitary confinement.
yeah, because it even changes, you know, the brain somewhat. Certainly
Yeah.
changes your sight.
Yeah,
You know, but you don't leave that situation unscathed. And if you live like that, there's sensory overload. You know, where Matula, who was like probably one of my best friends in the system, he went to Colorado ADX while we were down, and when I seen him again, he was coming on the compound in Atlanta, and we would be walking outside, and he would say, "Man, I'm ready to go back to the unit." And I'm like, "Man, we just got out. Why do you want to go back to the unit?" But it was sensory overload. It was too much. And his comfort zone was the cell. So it took a while for him to acclimate to, even when I first came out and I was at the train station, the train station looked huge to me because I was just used to being inside of a unit. And I was like, kept on saying, like, "Man, this joint is huge in here," you know?
Yeah.
And people was walking around, and I was, looking. I've got, the bubble head. I'm looking around. I went to a movie at night. It's pitch black, and somebody's sitting directly behind me. I'm as uncomfortable as hell, you know? And so, even having maintained, I guess, 99% of my sanity, I didn't leave unscathed, you know? I wasn't comfortable with people like the Uber driver. He's hopping up, he walking down the street with like his hand in his pocket. I'm like, "Oh shit." Is this how it is? You
So
know?
you're paying attention to stuff that you would while you were incarcerated, but now you're paying attention to it while you're on the street. You don't necessarily have to, but that's part of the, what does he call it, the paranoid thing? Is that part of just being
When I say only the
prepared?
paranoid
You're gonna be
survive, I think that a certain amount of, not just in this environment, but in any environment, a certain amount of paranoia may be healthy. Not paranoia to the degree that you need treatment, but that you have situational awareness.
You
You
gotta
know?
have that.
You have to have you have to be aware of situations that you are in that may be potentially hazardous or dangerous. You know, you can't be walking around like willy nilly. You know, so with a lot of guys coming out of jail after a period of time, they have that, but it's hyped up. They have it's hyper. And so they may tend to overreact. Slights in jail take upon added dimension because in a small world, small things loom large. You know, and so if I tell you in the jail a guy owes me $14 and I hit him in the head with a lock and a sock, it makes perfect sense. Say, "Oh yeah, yeah, man, he had that coming." But if I'm on the phone and you my wife and I say, "Yeah, I'm in the hole," and you say, "What happened?" "Guy owed me $14." And baby, okay. So I cracked his head open. "You did what?"
Right.
I had a bunkie like that, man. There's this dude at the Bronx. His name was KT Killer.
Even the name that you know is wrong.
Yeah,
Something's wrong there.
he stabbed a dude one day, and I asked him, "What was it over?"
Mm-hmm.
He said it was the book of stamps.
Yeah.
I said, he said it was the principal. But that's what he's talking about. And my man, he's a good dude, but he stands on principle. In jail, principles are at all-time high, you know?
And it might be a principle that makes sense in the outside. And that's
Definitely.
the point I'm getting at. There was a guy, he wrote a book called Belly of the Beast. I think his name was James Abbott. He was in jail in upstate New York. But he wrote the book, and eventually he got out. But he had been bitten, pushing the knife and the whole thing. But when he got out, he became the toast of the literati in New York. All of the great writers and stuff, they had him with him. He had wrote a compelling and poignant and moving book. And he was out having dinner with some of the literati one day down, I think, in Soho area. And he got into an argument with all people, the busboy. And during the argument, right after, he went in the back and got a knife, a shank. And he came out and he killed him.
The bus boy.
Yeah. So he was still on jail mentality strictly, you know.
Wow.
He was
Wow.
still strictly on jail mentality. And the juxtaposition of jail and the real world, he had never transitioned to.
And sometimes you don't.
So, yeah. So he went and got a shank like he would in the joint, except that.
That nigga went in the kitchen.
Yeah, except, yeah, he went in the kitchen and got a shank.
He got a shanker.
Yeah, except that
he had the banger.
He was in a position to really have a hell of a life because he was the toast of New York for a while.
Mm-hmm.
He was hanging with Norman Lear. Not Norman Lear, I forgot his name, but he was a big writer back then. But anyhow, he was, in all of the right company, around all of the right people in a position to like just catapult himself to the next level. And he blew it.
Mm-hmm. All right, listen, so your May 18th.
May 18th is going to be a renaissance period for Newark, New Jersey.
Okay, talk about it.
We're going to raise the standard of what parties, black tie affairs should look like.
Yes, we need that.
Yeah, we're going to raise the standard. We are raising capital to continue to advance our agendas. APFFC, the Akbar Foundation for Change, where we work with at-risk inner-city youth. We work with returning former incarcerants that are returning back to the communities. We help with their reacclimation and adjustment. We are trying to stop young black kids from being waved up and tried as adults.
Amen.
Yeah, from going to the porch to straight to prison.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing is if they are 15 years or older now, they can potentially serve a life sentence.
Yeah.
So we're trying to stop that. We want them tried as adults unless it's the most egregious case,
Even then, no.
Yeah, absolutely.
As kids.
So that's some of what we are doing at the youth house. We have a program in the youth house where we're teaching financial literacy to these kids. We're having outside guests come in and talk with them about potential career paths.
Mm-hmm.
We're having some people that they recognize. We have arsenal to rappers. Some of these kids want to be rappers, but there's a business side to the rapper. Everything is not about the microphone. You know? So he's going to be talking with them about the business side. We've got Sadiq Banks, who's probably the most prolific urban writer in the country.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming to them talking about writing urban fiction, but also about that he's producing his own movie.
Mm-hmm.
We're having Tahir Whitehead, the former football player, and I think he had a championship ring. He's going to be talking with them about physical fitness, physical health, but also about financial literacy. And we're going to have people that's coming and teaching financial literacy about trade lines, about credit repair. If they say if all you ever do is all you ever done, then all you're going to ever get is all you ever got.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to give them options by teaching them alternative routes aside from don't take the package, take the Palm Pilot.
And this is why you're coming to the May 18th event.
To help.
You know what I'm saying? Help build or fund all this right here.
Yeah.
What about, I know you're doing something.
He looking for, because at every fundraiser event, you got to take the floor. So you got to, it's like your father coming to do a dance. He needs 10 people that he has to dance with. You know what I'm saying? Besides Susan,
on the dance floor.
Bro, he's from the 70s.
Yeah,
he definitely got a two-step in him. If nothing else. If nothing else, he got a two-step in him, bro.
I'm doing the funky chicken or something that they did in 50 years.
Do the Trump dance. You know the Trump dance? We do the Trump
dance.
Yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the Trump dance.
You know what I'm saying? So,
They'll probably get chased out of there.
Yeah. So, you know what I'm saying?
Your new urban perspective on Monday. Who will you have on it?
This Monday, it'll be Vinny, by nature, and
Good
a
brother.
brother by the name of Tut that runs the organization New Directions.
Great brother. There's two great brothers.
After that, in between that, I'll do another Facebook Live. And then after that, we'll have Lakeisha Uri, who is a dear friend, and she is the deputy mayor and the head of the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery.
In Newark.
In Newark, yes. She'll be our final. We'll also be honoring people that are doing the work in these communities. Some of them are unsung heroes.
Yeah.
They're doing the work. They're in the weeds. But we want to honor them. So to that end, we'll be honoring Isaac Wright, who was actually the attorney that got me out, and who was a former convicted felon who overturned his conviction and became a practicing one of the more renowned and revered lawyers on the East Coast. We'll be honoring him. We'll be honoring Louise Roundtree, who's a force of nature in local Newark politics. We'll be honoring her. We'll be honoring my angel Cody, who's a dear friend. She is a death penalty attorney, and she's also responsible for getting a lot of the black women or women of color throughout the country out of jail on clemency. We'll be honoring Stephanie Sawyer, Judge Stephanie Sawyer, who's what they call a decarcerant. She tries to find alternatives for sentencing or alternatives for imprisonment as a judge. We'll be honoring her. Who else?
We gonna
Clarence Macklin.
Clarence Macklin. I'm very sorry. We'll be
That's
honoring.
okay.
We'll be honoring Clarence Macklin, who was nominated for something the equivalent of an Oscar in Europe in his movie Sing Sing.
He was nominated for Oscar too for his writing the movie.
For his writing, okay. Too. So those are some, but not all of the people that we'll be honoring. We'll also have an award.
Scared Straight? Where them guys at?
Yeah, straight.
The Raw Way?
Yeah, I don't know where that was like 60 years ago. I don't know where them guys. Hopefully they all still alive.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But we'll also pass out some tickets to what we call We're Watching, We See You.
Okay.
And that will be 3 people that are in the weeds, or not 3 people, but some of the people that are in the weeds that are doing the work every day that gets no note and no funding, but they're out there doing the work. So we'll be passing out tickets for them. The tickets are $200 a piece. And we'll be giving them several tickets for them to bring themselves and family members to the affair.
It's going to be a big event, man.
It's going to be a major event.
Major event.
Can't wait. I can't
wait.
And I want
to see a lot of brothers dressed up. You know what I'm saying?
I want to make this announcement. DJ Akbar is now the official DJ for APFFC.
Yes, baby.
Yeah, he's the official DJ.
Yes.
And he will be involved in any events that we have coming down the road. So awesome. That's man. He'll be working in conjunction with us with some of the social projects that we're working on. But he'll also be orchestrating anything that we do as it regards entertainment. Okay. You know.
Major.
All right. Well, thanks guys for joining us again today. We look
always,
forward to seeing you
my brother.
in another 2 weeks. I'll have way more questions for you then. I'm just trying to get you, open up just a little bit. Then I'm going for the deep dive next time.
All right. I'm looking forward to it.
And I'll see you guys May 18th, of course.
Okay. Yes, May 18th. We see you, Susan. For me, and make sure you lose your 10 pounds you were talking about.
I am going to lose it for that. Thanks for joining us, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, love.
Love.